Hey everyone, how you doing? Okay, so today we're gonna make a rose hip serum. You could call it a body oil if you want. Honestly, the term serum is just what people call something that's for a specific part of your body. So generally, like a face serum, we're just calling it serum to like target the face, but you could call it butt serum if you wanted to. And it would be just as prevalent. You're just indicating an area of the body to be used on. Um, so we are going to make a rose hip face serum. Now, a lot of people really like to buy rose hip seed oil, and they think that that's fantastic. And if you love it, more power to you. But I want you to know that it's kind of silly, because the way that fruit-bearing plants work, and the rose is indeed a fruit-bearing plant. These are little apples, basically, because they're in the apple family. The way that fruit-bearing seeds work is they create this little fruit that's packed full of nutrients and minerals and all other medicinal properties that are meant to feed the seed when it drops onto the ground, right? And so when we come in here and we just take out these seeds and we press those seeds and we throw the rest of this plant ally away, it's really pretty silly, because the plant has specifically made the fruit with more nutrition than the seed. That's, again, why the fruit exists. So if you think you really like how rose seed oil works for you, didn't get that out smoothly at all. I would say try making a rose hip infused oil and see how your skin responds to that. And it's super simple. So these are Wildcrafters rose hips that I have wilted very well. Meaning, for me, I like them to still have a little bit of push. I don't want them completely rock dry, but you can buy rose hips online and just use them as is. You're just going to have to infuse it a little longer. With this, I have a time frame. I can't infuse this oil for more than 6 weeks, because these rose hips do have water content in them still. Although these are perfect little pouches that are meant to like retain, so a lot of the moisture won't get out of the rose hip and into the oil. But it's important to understand that water plus oil equals a bacterial explosion if you don't pay attention, which is why if you're ever making a lotion or a body cream or anything that has water and oil in it, you absolutely have to use a real preservative. And please don't think that vitamin E or grapefruit extract or any of that stuff is a real preservative. It's not. But anyhow, so we don't have to use a preservative in this. We just have to make sure that we take it out before it starts mildewing. And then we just have to like have a time frame, and usually that time frame is 6 weeks, but you're gonna watch it pretty often. Now this will be something that I'm going to tell you to keep in a cool, dark place, because while water and oil equal a bacteria explosion, water plus oil plus heat is like a ticking time bomb. Like, the heat creates the ability for the bacteria to grow. So if you keep it somewhere cool, if it's the summertime and you're watching this, although you wouldn't have rose hips in the summertime, and you're watching this you want to learn how to do some other fresh plant infusion, you can even consider keeping it in your fridge. I won't do that now because it's winter time. And speaking of, you might think that you've missed the rose hip season. If you live in like super like deep winter comes in like September, you might have missed the rose hip season. But I don't gather until the end of November, mid-December, because I want my rose hips, like, look, they looked wrinkly like this before I gathered them. And that's because we know that rose hips double, almost triple their medicinal and nutritional content after frost has hit them. It's pretty amazing. And maybe you live somewhere where frost doesn't happen. Well, at least wait until there's a prolonged period of cold. Now, you can't really cheat it and put them in the freezer. That won't really work all that well. I mean, it can trick it a little bit, but mainly what happens when the cold hits is the plant says, oh my gosh, this is the last chance I have to give nourishment to the fruit that's going to sustain my seeds. And so it pushes everything it has into its little babies, basically, and then it goes dormant. So, you know, it's really just a good idea to wait until the first frost before you gather your rose hips, and that goes for making tinctures too. Now, if you're going to make jelly and stuff like that, you can gather before the frost hits, you know, when they're like perfect looking little fruits, but don't expect it to have as much medicinal value. So all I'm really doing here while I jabber to you is putting rose hips that have been really well wilted. For about a week now they've been wilted, into a jar that I can pretty much fill up about halfway. Rose hips are pretty potent. You don't need to fill the jar all the way. And then I'm going to pour avocado oil over the top. You can use any oil of your choice. I just really like avocado oil. She's amazing for your skin. She's absolutely packed with essential fatty acids, and she's a higher quality oil without like the crazy oil costs. Like, she's not as cheap as olive oil by any means, but she's a happy in-between ground between like olive oil and like jojoba oil or something like that, you know. But I really like her, and she absorbs quickly into our skin, and she's really silky smooth. So now that I've put my rose hips in a jar, I'm just going to dump oil right over top, and that'll do its thing. I don't actually like, if I'm using something that has any moisture in it, I kind of tend to avoid olive oil like the plague. So a lot of people swear by it, but that stuff goes rancid so freaking easy, especially if you're using virgin olive oil, because it's already got a lot of plant matter in it from the pressing of the olive. So like the difference between an olive oil and an avocado oil is that to make this avocado oil, they're pressing the seed of the avocado, but to make olive oil, they're smashing the whole olive, and so you kind of get that plant matter in there. And I think, in my just own opinion, that has something to do with why she goes rancid so easy. She might actually have like higher protein levels or something like that, but just, I do not like olive oil for making infusions that have like fresh or wilted plant matter in them, and infused oil anyhow. So really, I like how, look how vibrant the plant matter becomes the second you put oil over top of it. It does the same thing with tinctures, and to me it's like these plants like automatically like recognize like this really old sacred dance. While our ancestors might not have been using avocado oil, they were definitely using animal fats and such to make herbal preparations and infuse these medicines. So really, this is so simple. You're just taking your rose hips and you're filling up a jar about halfway. Then you're dumping your oil of choice over the top. You're putting a lid on. Now I want you to make sure that you filled it up pretty much to the top. I mean, it doesn't have to spill over when you put the lid on, but get as close as possible. And that's because it prevents oxidation. I'll honestly like open this lid back up when we're done making the video and let some of the air escape and add a little bit more, because you can see like the air bubbles that are going up it. That's all air that I want to escape from there. Oxidation, it can contribute to your oil going rancid if you are using somewhat moist plant matter. It's not necessarily a factor if you're using dried plant matter, but it can still occur. And just to give you like a mental image of what oxidation is, it's like ever take a bite of an apple or open a banana and then like leave it and then come back an hour later and it's like completely brown. That's oxidation. That's where the oxygen, the plant matter is being exposed to oxygen at like a vulnerable state. And you know, it can kind of like make it a little less potent. It can kind of like kill some of the minerals in it and things like that. Well, not minerals, but okay, brain, what word is it? Nutrition? Yeah, there you go. I'll go with that. It's not a great thing. So just fill it all the way to the top, and that's why it's important to pick a jar that you can fill all the way with your oil. You know, don't be like, oh, I've only got a small bottle of oil and a little amount of rose hips, so I'm going to put it in here and just fill it to there. find a jar that can pretty much be filled up with the amount you're working with, no matter what that amount is. So then I'm just going to set this in a cool, dark place for 6 to 8 weeks. And then when I'm done, this is important, I'm not going to press it. I have seen so many people work so hard on making a fresh or wilted oil infusion, and then they get in the habit of pressing like a tincture. Maybe you've got a fruit press or a tincture press, or you really want to squeeze it good. Resist the urge, because there's still moisture inside of these plants, and it's not going to go anywhere, and it's not going to like evaporate off in the infusion process. So when you smash those plants, you will be squeezing water that hadn't entered into your oil prior is in there now, you know. And so I've been like, oh shit, I pressed it, you know, been like going through the motions, and then like you have to basically completely discard what you've made, because there's no real easy way to get that oil, that water out of the oil. Now you're gonna think that it's gonna float to the top, but it's not. Even if you try to like double boil it to like get the, you know, out, you'll see all that water in the bottom of your pot. And remember, if you're not thickening this into a salve, if you're using it like a serum, that water inside of the oil will create bacterial growth. So all that can be avoided by simply straining it through like a mesh, you know, a mesh strainer, you know, just like put it over your bowl, dump it through, and then just let it drip. So no pushing, no pressing, no squeezing, no twisting, just let it come out naturally, and you won't have any problems. And now oils, kind of like salves, have about a 1-year shelf life. You can extend that if you stick it in the fridge. It's not going to go bad after a year. It's not going to be horrible to use. It's just that its medicinal properties start dropping off after a year. However, as far as telling when this has gone bad, if it goes bad on you, you'll be able to smell it. And that's one of the millions of reasons that I don't use essential oils in any of my products or anything that I make. Because the real issue is they cover the scent of rancicity? Shit, I can't say that word. They cover the smell of rancid oil. Like if you, right now, if this goes bad, you will smell that it has gone bad. You're like, oh God, that smells like death. But if you put essential oils in this, if you're like, oh, I'm going to add some essential oil of rose in there, or this or that, it will mask the scent. And then you run the risk of rubbing a rancid oil on your skin that can give you all kinds of pretty serious issues. Plus, you know, you'll be able to open this and smell it. You'll be able to look if there's any white cloudiness forming. Although with avocado oil and olive oil and quite a few other ones, when they're cold they can get cloudy, but generally the rule of thumb is if you shake it and it doesn't incorporate back in, or if you like put it somewhere not warm but like room temperature and it doesn't like re-solidify, that is mildew. Sometimes you can get a film on the top that you can scoop off and then strain out, but generally if you start seeing mold grow like amongst the berries or any wilted plant matter that you're infusing in an oil, it's done for. You can't save it, you can't heat it back up to like try to like kill off the mold, you can't add preservatives, you can't turn it into a salve and just not tell anybody. It's done for. So, and that is a loss that we all take. I'll tell you right now, I do a ton of St. John's wort oil, and she's a hard one because you can't really wilt her because you need the hypersin content to be like fresh and right there. But like that also, but blooms are also notorious at like, and I know I'm just drifting off here, but blooms are also notorious at making oil go rancid because, like, think about a flower and how like moist it is. They're like just the definition of water. And so on average I probably make about 4, maybe 3 gallons of St. John's wort infused oil every summer, and I always plan for at least a half gallon of that to go rancid on me. No matter how perfect I do it, no matter how to protocol I stick, it just will happen. So kind of just be ready to take a loss. But you probably won't have that much of an issue with rose hips, and you definitely won't have the issue at all if you decide to use dried rose hips or any other dried plant matter when you're making infusions. Now, with the dried rose hips, you are going to need to stick it on a heat source, and I don't mean in a crock pot for a few days, or, you know, infusing things on top of your stove for the day. That is not the same as like a real infusion, and honestly, you're kind of just capturing the scent at that point. You're not really getting any of the long pulled out extracted properties that the oil will do. So anyhow, you would just sit that like on a seed heating mat if you're using the dried rose hips. Those are fantastic. You can sit it on top of your fridge and cover it up with something, you know, that's going to keep the light out. Fridges are usually pretty warm. You can sit it on, maybe you have a water heater. Just put your hand on something and it feels ambiently warm, like, you know, not hot, don't burn yourself, but like that's enough to infuse it. So the next step is, of course, a label. So labels are important. You remember what's in there, and they're really important if you're using the wilted rose hips like I am here, because you need to know what date you started it, and then even write down what date you're going to extract it, because generally if the thing that has fresh plant matter in it is gonna go bad, it's gonna do so after 6 weeks. Like, that's your maximum. You really can't go past 6 weeks, and if you do, it's kind of like you're into the rotten food stage, because what's inside of there, even if you're not seeing it in your oil, is beginning to decompose because it's fresh plant matter. So I'm gonna check that it's an oil infusion. I'm gonna put the date on there that I started it. I'm gonna try to talk and write at the same time and not mess things up. And this just helps you know what you're making. And, you know, not get it confused with something else. And then you're just going to stick it on your jar. Now, you don't have to make these labels like I do. You can just use some Scotch tape or something like that. But today, I just made a rosehip serum or a rosehip body oil, or oil that I can use in a body cream or a lotion or anything like that. And it will definitely be way more potent and way more healing than rosehip seed oil. Now, these labels, I just make them on Avery. If you buy like Avery labels from like Walmart or something like that, you get an automatic, like, you get to use a program for free, and it lasts, like, I think they give you like a 6-month or a year program, whatever. It gives you a while, and so you can just go in there and design your own. On mine, I have it say, is it a tincture, is it a honey, is it an oil infusion or other, you know, is it wildcrafted, store-bought, or a mix. I write down, you know, sometimes if I have to, I write down like how much a product weighed when I put it in there, all that kind of stuff, but you don't have to get that complicated. You can just put it on a piece of Scotch tape. The only thing that I really advise that you don't do is use like a marker on the jar, or like even a Sharpie on the lid oil, and, you know, maybe if you got that around some tinctures that are leaking, which have alcohol in it, it'll get smudged off, and then it doesn't really wipe off all that well, so like you end up with these jars that have like all different words on them, and you know, you write the best you can, but it can lead you to making mistakes. So a clear label with a date on it, you won't make a mistake. So anyhow, that's how you make a rose hip serum, and I definitely think that you are smart enough to do that, and to decipher all the things that I've been jabbering about. If you like my videos, if you like hear me ramble about things and get sidetracked and say the wrong words or not know how to pronounce words, make sure to turn on notifications below by clicking the little bell icon, and then subscribing to my channel. Both of these things help you get notified when I upload a new video, because I don't do these on like a scheduled basis. They kind of just, as I'm working, they come along, or as I'm out on the land, they come along, and so it's really helpful. And then make sure to like and comment on the video. That really helps me know that you're here with me, that I'm not talking alone into the void, but it also helps the algorithm think that I'm worth showing to people. So I'm grateful for both. And conversation is great. Things get going in the comment section, and questions get answered. And I'm pretty good about answering questions when I do get the notifications. Sometimes I don't always see them because there's a lot, or a lot going on, and, you know, I'm a human with kids and stuff like that. But generally, if it's a question that's about this video, I do my best to answer. And then like come hang out with me on Instagram, come find my website, all that stuff by following the links here. I have a really big Instagram account. I'm pretty active on there, and I don't just talk about herbalism. I talk about all kinds of stuff. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and please, if you take away anything from these videos, I want it to be that you are smart enough to do this, and you do not have to pay somebody thousands of dollars to teach you how to do this. I'm serious. I'm pretty sure you can put some herbs in a jar and pour some oil over it, and you don't need to pay to learn that, okay? Alright, well, I will see you next time, okay? Bye.